Welcome to the Soloventure podcast. Wherever you're listening to or watching this, if you could do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe or follow button, we'll work tirelessly to make the show better and expand production as we want to share the best info and best experiences to inspire your journey to solopreneurship. That is the only favor we'll ever ask of you. Thanks for your time. Now back to the show.
Okay, cool. So are we introing it? I guess we could quickly intro. So
Yeah.
um
Episode 2 in our 4 or 5 part series. Yeah, I fucking I do like
that
the
was
damn
good.
code.
That was good.
Was it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, welcome to episode 2 of our
No, you got to do
several-part
the cup
series.
again.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Welcome to episode 2 of our several-part series on freelancing. We left off last week with leveraging your network, and today we're going to get into the who of where to find clients. So like we said before, you leverage your network. You start with the people that you know and start like with friends of friends. And this could be done, door to door if it has to, or through Facebook, you name it. However, you know people, somebody may need you for something. And then there's other databases out there as well. There's besides LinkedIn, there's Apollo.io and Hunter.io. I haven't actually used one of those specifically, but I think you've got some experience with those two, don't you?
Yeah, when I found my first clients, I used a mix of Hunter.io and Google. So literally big old spreadsheet, all the companies that I wanted to do some work for that I thought I could get as a client. I wasn't putting Nike on there and Adidas or anything like that, obviously. Like go to your level and find the kind of companies that are more willing to work with perhaps a junior. If you are a junior, if you've got 10 years of experience in an agency or for a brand directly, then yeah, maybe you've got a little bit more weight to go after some of the bigger brands or bigger agencies in the space. But ultimately using Google to find those companies, build a big spreadsheet, and then find the contact information. So you can Google it, you can go to each page, but then there's also tools like Hunter.io where if you copy and paste the URL, it will actually it will try and find the contact information for you, usually email addresses. So some of these tools like speed the process up, but in essence, it is identify the companies you want to work with and get as a client, find their contact information, and then send them a message. The cold email side of things, which is where I focused on, is there are some complications in terms of like you want to look into warming up your domain name. You want to be careful how many emails you send. Go into that detail, look up cold email, make sure you do the best practices, which aren't too difficult. But ultimately, the information for these clients is out there via these databases, via just Googling. So it's just a case of identifying who you want to work with, find the contact information, and start sending out the messages, social as well, not just email.
But yeah, that's basically it with the using some of those platforms to do cold outreach. I know you can also follow up with a phone call. Is it time consuming? Yes. Is it a little annoying to do? Maybe. But I know that you've even done that in the past where you've reached out by email and then followed up the agency with a phone call. And it just reinforces in their mind, like, hey, I saw this guy's name on my computer and he's calling me now. So it's going to do one of two things. They'll be like, oh, this guy's great. He's following up and he's professional, or he's super annoying, but it doesn't matter because you'll never hear from them again. So it's all a numbers game, and it's worth a shot either way,
I think over the last year, I've encountered and interacted with a lot of people that are scared or nervous about reaching out. And I get it. You feel like you've got everything on the line. There's a little bit of pride involved. Obviously, you really want it. So yeah, you're like, oh shit. And you naturally have a scarcity mindset, or at least I did in the beginning a little bit. My old agency, I learned a lot there that kind of removes it a little bit. So it wasn't too bad, but I know way back in the day, it was 100% present. It's a scarcity mindset. You're like, if I don't get this person to respond to me, to my outreach email, I'm not going to get a client. Or like, that's one I can strike off the list. And I'm like, oh God, the list is getting shorter. The list is so fucking long. There are more than you think there's hundreds of thousands of agencies or clients that would work with you. The best way, I think, to get over it is a little bit diving in the deep end, which is cool. Get a list of all, I don't know, 50 companies in your area that are local, because you don't want fees calling abroad, and call them all up out of the blue, no email to warm them up. Just be like, sit there with the phone and call every single one of them. Hey, you're looking for any freelance copywriters, freelance graphic designers? Just do it, because you have nothing to lose except for the hour you spend doing it. And you might actually just surprise someone. I'm in the countryside. I'm like swatting away flies. It's not because my room is disgustingly smelly or anything, just to clarify.
That's great. That's great.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's a very good, basically what you're doing is you're getting used to rejection, and you have to do it. If you want to become a freelancer, you have to get used to rejection, because it is going to happen. It shouldn't burn you. You should be able to just be like, cool, that's another one. Cool, bring it on. There's so much more out there. And I think just phones are a good way of doing it, because most of the time someone picks up. So it's not like you send an email and you wait 3 days or 2 weeks and they respond. You get instant feedback in the space of an hour after calling, 50 companies. And it's quite interesting to get the feedback. Sometimes you hear some of the concerns or some of the reasons they don't want. Like, this is all valuable information that you should be collecting. So I think the call method is great. I didn't get any, hands up for the time I did it, I didn't get any clients from it. I didn't do that much, to be honest. I did a couple of hours in a week almost a year ago, but I got through to a lot of people. And with a long-term vision, the important thing from that hour or 2 hours spent is that I got a lot of good emails, as in they were like, oh, hey, yeah, we'll give you, what was the email for the director of X? Cool, got the email, did have a bit of back and forth, didn't want to use me, absolutely fine. So instead of using these tools, it's actually a way to warm them up a little bit, to give you their email address for you to then email. And they're less likely to just delete it out of the blue because it's not cold. So that's another good approach. But 100%, if I'd have stayed there for weeks and actually called every day across the UK, because that's my locale in terms of phone calling, 100% would have got a client. So if you're already confident, I would say screw the rest of these things, call them. Like, just call, because if you're confident, like, one, you're probably going to enjoy it, and two, you'll probably get client pretty quickly that way.
And what's the one thing that all freelancers say, and this goes for myself too, the one thing that everybody says that they wish they had done before is start the outreach or have the nerve to do that. Like, and it just goes for myself. I'm like, I can't believe I waited 6 months to start prospecting. And when we ask other people that we work with, it's the same thing. Like, I cannot believe I was like too nervous to send the email or reach out on LinkedIn or you name it. And I was like, man, I feel so stupid now. Like, I should have started that earlier. And the rejection thing is funny too, because in the beginning, like so this is a true story. I actually got a LinkedIn notification 2 days ago for a job that I applied for, I guess 6 months ago. I don't even remember them. And it was a rejection letter saying, we're not moving forward with your application. It was for a copywriter, a freelance gig. And now it's funny to me. I'm like, oh, I don't even remember you, but that took time, because in the beginning you reach out and you get your first 5 rejections back, or you don't hear back at all, which is more likely you won't hear back. And you're like, oh, what am I doing wrong? And, all these thoughts run through your head. Then over time, like anything else that's a little difficult, once you get used to it, like I find it to be actually comical now when people are like, hey, we're not going forward with your application. I'm like, I don't remember who you are. So it's something you just have to get used to over time, I think.
The way I try to think about it is, imagine a world where you wake up and every single day, all of the clients that you might have a chance of working with respawn every day, and they're just there available again for you to like contact. That's happening every single day. Like, and I'm not saying like new agencies are being born every single day, but like, there's so many available, and brands, there's so many available, that unless you've got a massive team behind you that are doing all this outreach, you could spend hours and hours a day for a year plus, and you still wouldn't reach all the businesses that you could possibly work with, unless you're in some ridiculously niched service in a ridiculously niche industry, there's plenty of clients out there. It's a numbers game. You have to put in the work. There's a bit of luck involved.
And you don't need that many, one or two really good clients, will carry you for a long time. I had a couple in the beginning that paid me enough that I eased my mind a little bit. And then you can take your time with everything else and not be so stressed. So that's another big problem we run into is like, we think we all have to have six, $1,000 contracts or you name, put a number on it, but that's not true either. You just need one or two big ones, or even one big one, or just one, even one small one in the beginning, to start building a portfolio and start getting a little bit of leverage there. So anyway,
100%.
it's not as scary out there as everybody makes it out to be.
And if you're looking for more options, you can always go to the Freelancer platforms, and I'll hand over to you.
Sure. And that's how I got my start too. Like, I know a lot of people go the cold outreach route. I did. And I did actually, I made all the mistakes that you just outlined. I got lazy with it. I didn't, hear back from a lot of people. I got a couple of rejections. So I went to Fiverr and Upwork, and we won't get deep on the platforms today because that's a whole nother conversation. But those are hot leads. Those are warm leads. It's a marketplace. For those of you who don't know, you can check them out. But like Upwork, for example, is where I found my first few clients, because there are people on there that are looking to hire you, as opposed to cold outreach where you're just kind of taking a chance. Now, that said, you still have to, like we mentioned in the last episode, you still have to have a good profile. You have to have a decent portfolio, even if it's a quote unquote fake one, or one that you wrote, for a product that you're not actually writing for. You have to have something to show, and you have to present yourself well, and you have to prospect well. So those are, things that we can get into at another time. But the platforms themselves are great because they're warm leads. And you can reach out to people who need you. You can reach out to specific niches in there. And I found that to be pretty successful, pretty lucrative through there. I got my first 2 or 3 clients through Upwork. We did not stay on the platform, meaning they paid me a couple times on there. We developed a relationship off the platform. I've got 3 of them now from back then that I do varying levels of work for. And I find that personally to be a great place to start, especially if you don't have any experience, as long as you can optimize a profile and, conduct your outreach on there. And I think that for anybody new, doing a combination of the cold outreach that we've been talking about, and then checking out these platforms, and they're free. Like, they don't make any money unless you do. I know you can get like a premium version, but you don't need any of that, and you can see their stats and everything on there. You kind of keep track of that. And now, and it builds on itself too. So for example, now my Upwork profile, I think I'm top rated plus, which I'm not even sure what that means, but I'm top rated plus because I made a certain amount of money on there over time. And that just opens the door to more opportunities. So I don't spend a lot of time on there anymore, but as a newbie starting out, it was great because I could reach out to people directly. I could view projects. I signed up for a client account. So I had my freelancer account, then I also had a client account so that I could see what other freelancers were doing with their profiles, do a little bit of research. Again, this stuff's all free. It's not that hard to do. And it gave me a huge advantage. And like I mentioned, I've got those clients to this day now that they're paying me pretty well off the platform. So I do highly recommend checking out Fiverr and Upwork. There's a whole host of other platforms out there. Those are the 2 I prefer, but you do a little bit of research on that. There's several, available.
Yeah, there's whichever you choose. Guarantee you there's at least 100, maybe 1,000 videos on YouTube of how to optimize your profile, how to win on those platforms. So yeah, no excuse on the platforms. There's loads of information available. So if you have time, a blend of all these approaches is quite good, because you're not putting your eggs all in one basket. If you're not familiar with that idiom, it basically means instead of putting all your hope into one option or solution, you're kind of spreading it around. So instead of just doing cold email, you might do a bit on the platforms, a bit of cold email, building your social media, blah, blah, blah. Instead of doing just one.
Yeah, it's like what I do when I go to the bar. I go around and talk to every girl at the bar, and hopefully one of them comes back and talks to me in a couple of hours. So if you spread your luck around, somebody eventually will. The prospecting will work. You just have to spread it out.
It's a numbers game, right?
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. So, and next up, we got social media groups, and which are pretty helpful too. You have to be a little careful with those, being a little too hard selling in them. Meaning, so I joined a couple of groups on LinkedIn. for a particular service that I was writing for in a couple of Facebook groups. You don't want to join these groups and immediately start trying to sell yourself to everybody in there. You need to start interacting a little bit. So, for example, if I'm trying to do some copywriting for aquariums or something like that, I could join an aquarium Facebook group and start giving little helpful tidbits. Like I could say,
That's
hey,
a cool niche.
a good, yeah, no, I actually know somebody who sells pumps for those. It's an expensive habit. Those big, huge tanks with all those fish are super expensive.
Oh, for insides. Okay. In the
Yeah,
UK,
like
if you
fish.
say aquarium, it's like the ones you go and visit.
Oh yeah, like to swim in. Or
No,
are you
wait,
talking about
wait,
the zoo?
no.
You're talking about the zoo. You're
Yeah,
talking about like a zoo.
yeah.
Oh
Definitely
yeah,
don't swim in this
yeah.
one.
Yeah. Well, those are all those are also like saltwater. That's big business too. But like the ones that people have in their homes, for
Got
example, if
you,
you
got you, got you.
if you if you yeah, you don't want to go swimming with a fucking
I've
shark.
just got a
But
sight of like there's a school trip in the aquarium, and then you're just
yeah,
there like woo,
yeah.
with the shark.
Somebody in there with the manatees. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
going to be. But yeah, but if you join a group like that, you can start interacting with people. I mean, obviously, if they click on your profile, they'll start to figure out why you're there and what you provide. But if it's just kind of easing your way in, providing valuable information, not just not DMing everybody and saying, hey, do you need a copywriter or whatever freelance gig you're looking into, but kind of like provide something valuable in your service, like hey, I saw this the other day and you can get more clicks per whatever if you do your CTAs this way, your calls to action a certain way, and kind of providing value and posting in there. And then eventually the people get to know you, start interacting. So it's a little bit of a longer game in the social media groups, but it is pretty cool. And if there's not too many of you in a group, meaning if there's not a bunch of other writers or whatever you're doing in one group, you can actually get a lot of traction, and then you get somebody gives you a good review, says, hey, this guy's great. And then you get referrals through that. So it's worth interacting. It does take a little bit more effort, but there's no harm in it. And again, this is all free. LinkedIn, Facebook has a lot of business groups. So it's just a matter of doing a little bit of research, finding one, and setting aside a couple minutes a day to try to throw something valuable in there.
Yeah, and then that translates to offline as well. And we did touch on it in part one, where why aren't you? Just be friendly. Like, don't go around being like thinking that everyone's a potential client, because that's just a weird life to live. But yeah, like be friendly, and don't, not to the extreme of like imagining that you're a real life LinkedIn profile, because that's fucking boring. But yeah, I mean, you don't know who you are going to meet every day, especially if you are living in a city, high density area. Like, there's probably a lot of chance for serendipity. I think that's the right word. The copyright says. So yeah, just be, when you walk out the door, just be your best self. Like, because you don't know who you might meet that day. So it's the same on the social groups as it is in real life.
Yeah, that's true. And if you do have a chance to, like this goes back to kind of using your own network. But so, for example, I've got a lot of stores down the street from where I'm at, and there are a lot of businesses owned by like family. They're not corporate. So if I wanted to walk in, for example, and we've said this before, even during travel, like just mentioning something that you notice that could be improved a little bit with the marketing. So you could do things in person too, because a lot of times your emails are either not going to the owner because they have staff for that, or they're just going to spam because, let's face it, that happens a lot these days. So just walking into either an agency or a business and bringing that up, saying like, hey, this is me. I know it's kind of old school, but you could even take a resume or something with you. There's no harm in that, because these people are getting hundreds of emails per day. One of my contracts that I did for a home service business, they do air conditionings and things like that. It took us forever to get through to them. And it wasn't because they didn't need us. They actually needed a good marketing team. But I didn't get through to them because the emails that I thought were going to the owner don't actually get checked by the owner. The owner's inbox is managed by some staff or some intern. She was overwhelmed. So there's also no harm in, is as comfortable as it can be sometimes, if you have a local business or something like that, that you can actually walk in and kind of put a name to the face and check it that way. Now that also works. I think you actually did that once, didn't you?
No, what I did is I told you about, so Adam, who is going to come on the show, one of our upcoming guests. copywriter. He's mostly been based in Hawaii. I think he may have moved temporarily to mainland US. Is that how you would refer to it, mainland US, or you would just say
Yeah,
US? Okay.
mainland. Yeah. If you're Hawaiian, yeah, or something.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if he is. I don't know where he's from. Sorry, Adam. But anyway, really good copywriter, ghostwriter. He mentioned on Twitter, I think almost a year ago now, he was like, why aren't people like sending real letters? And I thought it was a really good idea. Like, what's the best way to get on top of their inbox? Well, actually send a physical letter, because they definitely get way fewer, and also it stands out. But what I would do now, if I lived in a city now, what I would do is a blend of um, pinpointing several, going to their offices with a letter or something, and I don't know, it's like, yeah, here you go. Like, I'm an email copywriter. I've noticed 3 things you should change in your email flow. Just want to give you that. Great, nice to meet you. And they'll be like, what the hell? But
Yeah,
then if it gets to the right person, it's like who's this guy who just walked into our office, did what every cold email does, but no one else has done that. I bet very few people have done it. So think outside the box. Like, what is everyone else not doing? And again, it's just, I would do it anyway. I would say, even if you knew you weren't going to get any clients from doing it, go and do it. Do it 10 times, because if you do that, you will build the confidence. And that's something super important to keep in mind throughout the entire process, is that all of this is to build your confidence as well. Because at some stage, you're going to have to talk about what you do and why it's valuable and why they should hire you. So the more you put yourself through the paces in situations like this, and again, it's like a respawn every day. You get a new opportunity to fail, but also mainly learn. It's like, go into these offices, spend a Saturday afternoon, go into the offices. No, we don't want to speak to you. No, no, cool. You will be anesthetized, numb to it. You'll be numb
yeah,
to it.
right. Yeah, and there's no. It's fun too. Sometimes like walking around, like not to get back into older stories, but I used to do that with my private investigator job in Florida. On the weekends, I would go to law firms, and I had those things that you hang on. It's really annoying, actually. Those things that you hang on doorknobs, like a flyer, but it's a built. I ordered it from Vistaprint or something, and I would go around, but I would make a day of it. I would go around, talk to the people that were at their desk, and the ones that weren't, I would leave it on a little hanger on their door. And then I would like, oh, I'm in a new neighborhood. I'm going to try this spot for lunch that I've been trying to get to. Like, it doesn't have to be some miserable thing. You can make a day of it. And when you give somebody something tangible, like if you walk into an agency or business and you hand them a piece of paper, yeah, it's a little weird. And it might be a little funny, but like, it takes a lot more steps for them to get rid of that piece of paper. Like, it's going to be sitting there. Somebody's going to keep looking at it. Like, when you get an email, it's real easy just to get rid of that damn thing or just roll right by it. But you get a piece of paper. If they actually take it in front of you and they crumple it up and, toss it, then you're probably not going to get it. But, like, it's harder. Like, it's one more barrier that they can't just take that fucking thing, it's get by it.
That's a really good point. Yeah. They'll be like staring over the trash can and be like,
Yeah. Okay. See you. I made that for you. I can see you're going to throw it away. Right, yeah. So co-working spaces, this is interesting because I've been in a few in Bali, and I know it's cliche, but like the big ones there that are super expensive, that were wonderful. It's kind of like we mentioned before. It's kind of like being at like a mini bar because they do have alcohol there, but it's also like there's a lot of like-minded people there. A lot of other nomads, obviously. Even if in most of these countries there are people that, even if they're not nomadic, if they're in co-working, they kind of have the same mindset. They work remotely, and that's a good place to network. You do run into there's usually a lot of everybody there. Like, there's usually a lot of designers, a lot of copywriters, but that doesn't mean that there's not somebody that couldn't use your help, or you could meet other people that are in your trade, for example, like for copywriting. I can meet other copywriters and they could say, hey, look, there's another group over here. There's no harm in that. Plus, it's just fun to go out and work amongst other people too, which I think we need to start doing more of. Like, just in general, the society needs to start getting out a little bit more of the whole remote work thing. So I don't know what your experiences have been with co-working. I've had really good ones. I wasn't necessarily there to network, but just the vibe, and everybody's super friendly. Like, you're not going to run into anybody who's just going to be a dick there. You'll be able to approach people and kind of, could learn some things too. I learned a lot about copywriting in Bali just because I was sitting next to somebody and listening to what they were saying. They were when they were on the phone. So it's like a like-minded group of people, even if they're not doing exactly what you do.
Absolutely. I think it's more than recommended. It's necessary, especially if you're always on the move. But also, I think it's almost beyond thinking of yourself and that you want to get clients. It's quite satisfying to be a connector as well. So the more people you build in your network, the more people you meet, get to know, like it's quite satisfying. I'm speaking to someone I've known for a couple of years, like they make websites, they're looking for graphic design. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, I met so and so in Madrid. Let me pop her a message. Oh, yeah, hey, are you available for any work? Like someone's looking for graphic design. I don't know if any of those projects came off, but like it's nice to make those intros and open other people to other opportunities as well as yourself. So when you go to spaces like that, you're able to expand your network and be in a better position to do it.
Yeah, there's also like a feeling of like it's a weird confidence boost too, or maybe I'm not using that right, but it's like when I'm in a co-working space and I look around and I'm on my laptop, I'm like, even if I didn't have any clients at the time, I'm like, I made it, like I'm in a co-working space. It's like a weird mental thing where you're like, this is really cool. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to say that I could go to co-working, even if I'm not getting anybody right now. It's like this, it kind of just gives you energy just being there around everybody else working, even if you don't really have much going on. It's kind of like a you made it type thing. But I know it really, I would always feel good going in there. I had energy all day. And when I left, I was always in a great mood for one reason or another.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of those people, if they're not working for a company that's remote, like they're in the same boat. So they're like-minded, but I think when you're traveling and you're working your own thing, it can get a bit lonely because no one knows but you how it feels to run your shop, your freelance business. But someone else running a freelance business gets the idea. Like they know the struggles. They're there to celebrate wins with as well. So like they get it. And that's really important to be around. So like, yeah, you're in a fucking co-working space and you've had a big win. Like the people there are going to fucking love it. So it's a good space to be in to share stuff like that.